The Bengals have taken their biggest swings in free agency, but what's left on the to-do list? Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lisco. He's your host, James Rapien. We're the Locked On Bengals podcast here in the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere you get your podcast, so please do subscribe if you'd like to be updated on what's happening with the Cincinnati Bengals every day and have extra analysis in your pocket for the water cooler, assuming your office is an office and there's a water cooler there. And you want some extra Bengals notes to talk about. This is a great place to get them. And today we're going to talk about what's left for the Bengals in free agency, James, as Trent Brown is perhaps the last big starter level signing. We could see a couple of more depth signings and a rotational piece on the interior defensive line, maybe a cornerback, maybe a wide receiver. I think that at this point that's looking unlikely, but the biggest moves probably mostly behind the Bengals, but I don't think they're necessarily done. They have, I believe, we don't know the Trent Brown money as of this recording, still some cap space to work with here. And whether that's extensions or external guys, I think there are a few more moves we should be expecting.
Sure. I think that there are a few more moves, a few more holes that they do need to add to. They have to add to the interior of their defensive line. I would be surprised if they didn't. That doesn't mean it's going to be a big name. That doesn't mean that Teair Tart is back in town and he's at Ruby's and he's eating a steak. You get that thing medium rare, Teair. If you do get back into town, you'll enjoy it. But no, I'm not sure who it is. I do think that they'll add someone, even if it's just a body to add a body. And that might be Josh Tupou. That might be a familiar face. That might be a re-signing. It might be someone of that stature just to have someone else in that room before the draft. I think corner is certainly a spot that they can address. And there's still some pieces out there that they could look at and say, all right, not necessarily Eli Apple, even though I've seen that on social media, but someone like that, where you're talking about a one-year deal, veteran, and who knows? Your guy, Christian Fulton, I think he's being courted by the Chargers right now. So maybe that deal will get done. I'm not sure if it will. Maybe it will by the time you see this. Point is I do think they had a corner. That's probably at the top of their priority list when you look at the depth there and what's available. Obviously, they would love to add a defensive tackle, but there's just not a lot available. So I don't know if they're running to get one of those guys locked up as much as they might be running to try to get one of these corners. That they probably feel like that there are still playable guys out there that they could add. And after losing Chidobe Awuzie, you do want to add someone behind DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt. Obviously, they have Mike Hilton and Jalen Davis in the slot, but you need another outside corner, I think.
Yeah, unless Dax Hill is the guy they're penciling in there, which is not a move that we would support, most likely, at least initially.
You can't bank on that, right? Like, if you want to give him some reps in the offseason program just to see, fine. But that's where I would leave it. And it has nothing to do with Dax. It's just, that's a wild card. It would be like moving Mike Hilton to safety, right?
Yeah,
be a wild card there too.
We'd give Dax Hill every chance in camp or in OTAs or whatever to play a good outside corner, but it's not something that we would condone the Bengals banking on going into those offseason programs, coming out of the draft and having just at outside corner Cam Taylor-Britt, DJ Ivey, and Alan George. Or sorry, DJ Turner and Alan George, because DJ Ivey's coming off that ACL. And even if we thought that there was some promise for DJ Ivey last year, and I don't want to write the guy off because he was impressive in training camp and he was making plays on special teams when he got hurt. And that was a really unfortunate injury, but it was late in the year and it's an ACL for a corner. And you never know how guys are coming back from that. So they feel thin at outside corner. And that's a position where we know Lou Anarumo has liked to have maybe one more guy than even we thought they needed to go get. And that wasn't necessarily the case last year. They drafted another second round corner, so they didn't necessarily go add another veteran, although Sidney Jones was with the team all year. We're looking for that Eli Apple level signing in terms of money, in terms of veteran experience, not necessarily Eli Apple specifically, But that's why corner is one of those spots we've been talking about since the jump with this free agency period is getting that depth veteran piece.
Depth, veteran. Would you, if you're the GM, if Duke Tobin says you get to be Duke Tobin for a day, would you call Stephon Gilmore?
I mean, you'd find out what the price tag is. But if the price tag is $10 million, would I mean,
6. What if it's 6?
Sure. I mean, if it were me, I would not have front loaded the cap hit on Drew Sample. I would have probably used a void year with Trent Brown's deal. I would have done a lot of things differently to force more money into this year. And don't get me wrong, the Bengals are spending more cash. By the time things are said and done, the Bengals cash spend this year will be higher than the salary cap this year, I think. Maybe not. They're currently, according to Over the Cap, a top 10 spending team in football before counting Trent Brown's deal, which we don't have the details on yet. So they are spending money, don't get me wrong, but with a front-loaded cap hit, I mean, that's so rare in the NFL to see a front-loaded cap hit of non-prorated contract, no prorated money period in Drew Sample's deal, to the point that I thought that was an error in the cap site accounting tracking. Yeah, I would have done things a little bit differently, and then you could fit a Stephon Gilmore and not even think about it, especially if you use a void year and spread some of that around into the future a little bit.
There are some guys out there, there are like Adoree Jackson. I don't know if they view him as an outside corner. He's still out there, unless I missed something.
I think he is. I was just trying to pull up the corners.
Akello Witherspoon. I'm looking like at the pre-30-year-olds out there. Christian Fulton, like you mentioned, we'll see if he's done. Rock Ya-Sin, 27.8. He's 28 years old. Rock Ya-Sin, also all name team. So come on.
Sure. Yeah. Xavier Howard is going to be out of their price range, I assume. Steven Nelson's on the wrong side of 30. Fulton's the one that we circled from the beginning, but there hasn't apparently been much interest there. CJ Henderson, another guy in his mid-20s that has the pedigree, the draft pedigree. Levi Wallace for a divisional familiar face. And Eli Apple is still out there if they wanted to kick those tires again for your third or fourth outside corner.
I think I don't know. You never know. I don't want to say that. It felt like the ship had passed, but it had sailed away.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
honestly, I wouldn't hate it. And in this cornerback market, I think he's pretty cheap because some of those guys you just named, that's why I would call who am I thinking?
Gilmore.
I just met Stephon Gilmore. That's why I would call Stephon Gilmore, is because outside of Chidobe Awuzie, which is good for Cheeto, he got paid. He's the highest paid corner of this cycle as of now. Good for Cheeto. And that could probably and will probably change with the L'Jarius Sneed if he gets dealt and signed to an extension with that new team. But yeah, I think you could steal one of these guys. And I think that's what the Bengals are looking to do now. It's like, all right, let's let the dust settle. And then they pounce.
And I do think they are still looking at the interior defensive line as well, which we'll talk about. But Jalen Johnson would be probably the top corner contract. He just signed with the same team, so it's easy to forget about that one. For an external free agent, though, certainly for a guy going to a new team, Chidobe Awuzie.
Yeah. I forgot it was an extension that he signed and not just the 1 year tag.
I had something else to say about corner, but I have forgotten what that is. So maybe we move on.
Let's move on. If you're looking for someone to play corner in practice, Jake can fly down here and get roasted.
Get roasted relentlessly.
By me. You wouldn't even need to play the Bengals.
Yeah, put a high school wide receiver across from me. I don't move like I used to.
Or me.
Yeah. What else is left for the Bengals in free agency? Are there some moves that we would make that we don't think the Bengals are exploring? Let's talk about those options coming up next.
I would probably sign me. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on the big upset or a number one seed, it's time to go dancing in America's number one sports book. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right, $200 in bonus bets right now if your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops today. And it's not just college hoops. Opening day is right around the corner for the Reds. Obviously, the NBA is in full swing. The playoffs are right around the corner. Get in on the action now. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. When your first $5, if you hit it, is going to get you $200 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com/lockedon.
So we think that a corner move is relatively likely, just looking at the depth chart, looking at what's there.
Mhm.
And I alluded to this as well. We still don't have a nose tackle on the roster. They probably will want at least a big body defensive tackle at some point.
Mhm.
Whether or not that's a guy they're expecting to play DJ Reader style workload or Josh Tupou style workload, and you're in sub packages and short yardage situations remains to be seen. And based on the guys that are still out there, it probably is a ladder as far as free agent acquisitions. I would support exploring the trade market as well
Mhm.
for defensive tackle. But what do you think, besides corner, is the next likely Bengals free agent move, as the free agent moves are legitimately dwindling?
I think there's two. I think they're probably done at tight end. I think they feel really good about their tight end room as of now,
You don't think
and
Mitch Wilcox is coming back?
not before the draft.
Okay.
No. Not before the draft. Now, maybe they go that route and they bring him back. I think running back is interesting because I think they're comfortable with their room. I also think there's a former first rounder that could just make his way back to Cincinnati, the guy that we talked about a lot before free agency started, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
But I also think it's kind of like tight end, where you want to go into the draft and see what you got and what you can get, and then address it after the fact if you don't get what you're hoping to land. And so we'll see. That's why I mentioned Clyde specifically, because I don't know if they're necessarily in the running back market, but they may look at it and say, well, he does fit what we're trying to do. We can just get him. He's cheap. So that's the only one. I think interior offensive line, to me, would be something I would look at. Someone that has that Max Sharping flex, and maybe it is Max Sharping. He's just sitting out there, but center guard, who can do both? Who can you find that can do both? Max Sharping was your backup center last year, and you either bring him back or you get someone else. Otherwise, you're prioritizing it really early in the draft, and I don't love that anyways. So at least get someone, because you just don't know how the draft is going to go.
Mhm.
And I do think they could add that interior offensive line help in this draft, certainly in quality interior line depth, but add someone anyways. So that's another spot. And it might just be re-signing Max Sharping, bringing him back. You're comfortable with him and he's still out there. So we'll see. But I think that those are some spots that we haven't talked about.
I think that's one area where what we would do would differ from what the Bengals are likely to do. I mean, their backups on the offensive line are currently coach favorite Cody Ford. They really like him. I am not where the coaches
Wow.
are on Cody Ford.
That's a shot. Okay.
But
Woo.
he's a fine guy to have as one of your backup pieces, but he shouldn't be your best backup piece. He shouldn't be your first guy off the bench at like 4 positions, which I think he is right now.
Mhm.
I think. And outside of that, you have the remnants of a draft class went wrong in Jackson Carman, Deontay Smith, Trey Hill, all still
Mhm.
on the roster. None of those guys are guys that this coaching staff seems to trust. And I think we're well past the period of, well, let's see if they can take a step this year. I don't think anyone's saying that about these guys anymore in the final year of their contract. You've got Jackson Kirkland, an undrafted free agent from last year, Nate Gilliam, Devin Cochran. And they like some of those guys for different reasons, but I don't think you're really comfortable, at least I'm not, with the depth they have on the offensive line right now. So admirable job of filling their starting free agent offensive line, because they're all mercenaries except for Cordell Volson at this point, with solid pieces. Orlando Brown, Ted Karras, Alex Kapp, and Trent Brown should all be solid pieces. And we'll talk about this a little bit in just a minute. But if Cordell Volson is what you consider an average starter, their depth is still below average. And I know this is an NFL-wide problem, but if we're talking about an area where we would make moves that perhaps they're not exploring, that is probably the one that springs to mind to me the most.
Sure. And it doesn't, again, it just needs to be some kind of depth that you can trust. From a guard standpoint, Greg Van Roten is just out there, but he's 34. And if you're older than me, the Bengals aren't interested. Calais Campbell is someone we're going to mention every single day until he signs somewhere, because I think he makes a lot of sense, even though he's not that nose tackle. He's 38 years old. Okay, so what? I don't care if he's older than a lot of your coaching staff. Not a lot, but some of your coaching staff at least. I think that's the element that's interesting now is, will the Bengals bend that at all? They did a little bit when you look at Sheldon Rankins. That's the one guy where they bend it. Trent Brown on a 1-year deal. We've seen that before, 1-year deal with Riley Reif. And so I don't want to say they bent a ton there, but adding depth to the trenches is something I think everyone that's listening is going to be on board with. Naturally, they're going to do it in the draft. But what are the odds they draft 3 offensive linemen? I would like to say pretty good. Now, what are the odds that, and let's just say they take one in the first round, what are the odds that the other 2, if we know 3 of their 10 picks, or 3 of however many picks they end up with, they currently have 10, end up on offensive linemen? What are the odds those guys are quality backups in year 1? Outside of the first, if they took one in the first round, it's hard to say because you don't know what round, you don't know when they're taking them. You don't know how much development they're going to need, and they could need some development. So why not add a proven piece or 2 now? I don't think anyone would argue with that.
Yeah. And I'm talking about something a little bit better than what they normally do there, like spending more than the veteran minimum on backups, which is not something that the Bengals tend to do. They did it with Akeem Davis-Gaither this year. They kind of did it with Drew Sample, sort of.
You want Dalton Risner? Just say it. Throw it out there.
Somebody like that, sure.
Or is it Risner?
I don't recall. But like we've talked about, I mean, haven't you talked about signing both Becton and Trent Brown? Not that that's a realistic idea if Becton's out there looking to start, but like that sort of thing where you're getting guys that have experience.
Oh, no doubt. I mean,
Cam Fleming still out there, guy we've talked about as a potential spot starter. Like, he shouldn't be expensive. Get a swing tackle.
And guys that could, let's say Becton, for example. Let's say or Fleming. Both guys have played both spots if needed, and so now you'd have Trent Brown, you'd have Becton. Let's just say they signed Becton because it's someone we've talked about a lot. If you didn't take offensive tackle at 18 for whatever reason, you still feel okay about your depth there. Much rather get a young guy that's going to be under contract for 5 years and all of those things. I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying you don't do it. But if something happens where you miss out on tackle, kind of like last year when the tight end class is so great and it just didn't fall to them the right way and they didn't force it, and it's going to be different this year. I think they're going to take an offensive lineman early. It's just hard to imagine they don't. But if that scenario happens, that 1 in 10 scenario, well, you have Becton there behind Trent Brown. You have Becton there behind Orlando Brown Jr., even though I think Trent would flip to the left side and you would just put Becton on the right. Who knows what they would do? But work that problem out. You have a first rounder coming off the bench. That would be nice. And who knows? Maybe it does happen. I agree with you. I think it's unlikely, but what if it's an Akeem Davis-Gaither like deal? 1 year, $3 million for Becton? Why wouldn't you? I would.
Yeah. So to sum it up, depth on the offensive line. Something
or a broken record. 4 years in a row, we're talking about it at least.
Well, we're going to talk about something else we've been talking about for
8
several years.
Actually, since the start of the podcast.
I actually did go back and look at year by year PFF pass blocking grades for team, and the Bengals haven't been in the top half of this metric since 2015. Which
this is a good tease. Go ahead. I remember 2015 very well.
But anyway, just to wrap up that summary, offensive line depth, interior defensive line, both depth because currently you're relying on Zach Carter and Jay Tufele and or Dominique Davis or Devontae Maxwell to play a lot of snaps for you. They need a couple more pieces there. I wouldn't be opposed to edge depth either. A veteran to come in there and provide some challenge to Osai, Sample behind Hendrickson, Hubbard, and presumably Murphy. We talked about running back a little bit with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Wide receiver is another one where they have 5 guys right now that are NFL rosterable, and then they got the undrafted guys, Cedric Jackson, Kendrick Pryor, Kwame Lassiter. Do you want to push any of that at the back of the roster before the draft? Probably not, but maybe. Tight end is another one with some potential, but that's what we're looking at for potential minor moves to wrap up this free agency. But like you said, James, the Bengals haven't been good at pass blocking for far too long. For a team with Joe Burrow at quarterback that wants to throw the ball all day. That needs to change. Could this be the year it happens? Or is it fool's gold again? We'll talk about that coming up next.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time wasn't limited, how would you use it? Maybe you'd go for a run, start working out. Maybe you'd be like Jake and get roasted by me in football because he can't cover me. Well, with BetterHelp, it's the most convenient and flexible therapy that you can try. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. Maybe you're traveling. Maybe you're like Jake, who's taking boats to different parts of the country and planes and all of the things that he does. Well, planes, trains, automobiles, BetterHelp is going to be flexible for you. And if you give BetterHelp a try, you're going to realize it's entirely online. It's going to be flexible. It's going to fit your schedule, whether you're at home and you're working from home, whether you're traveling all over the place. And all you have to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. And right now you're going to get 10% off your first month. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
For several years in a row, James, we have made the claim on this podcast after a free agency period, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Release have asked a question. Is this the best pass blocking offensive line the Bengals have assembled for Joe Burrow? The answer has been yes, but that has been slow and incremental progress that has earned that answer of yes from us. And it hasn't always played out on the field the way we thought it would at this time of year, with some disappointing performances at times from certain guys or injuries or whatever it is. In 2024, James, is this the best pass blocking offensive line the Cincinnati Bengals have assembled for Joe Burrow?
Broken record. Time is a flat circle. I'm talking trash to you. We talk about the trenches and depth for the Bengals, and we also talk about them being the best line that they've assembled for Joe Burrow. Yes, it is. And it's not because I don't think Jonah Williams is good. I think Jonah Williams is going to be fine in Arizona and probably have a career year in Arizona. I also think that Trent Brown is built to do what the Bengals want to do, which is have these big, strong, powerful pass protectors that take pride in it. And he can back up Orlando Brown Jr. on the left side. He can start on the right side. And so when I look at that, I look at Alex Kappa, who I think is going to bounce back from an inconsistent 2023. Obviously, Ted Karras was really solid, especially in the back half of the season in pass protection. And Orlando Brown Jr., playing through a groin injury at times last year, I think he's going to play at a much higher level this year because he's going to be healthy. And Cordell Volson, look, could he take a slight step forward? I'm saying that to the people that are really low on him. Let's just say he takes a slight step forward. You feel really darn good about this offensive line compared to where it was just a few years ago. The depth is certainly a question. Trent Brown's injury history is certainly a question. I don't think anyone's saying they should be done adding. But if you tell me those 5 guys are going to start all 17 games, which they had last year, that won't happen again this year. Just won't. But if you have that, I think Joe Burrow is going to be throwing the ball all over the damn field. And these guys are going to be the best unit he's had by far. And this Bengals offense is going to be exactly what they've envisioned over the past couple of years, given the changes they've made by adding Mike Gesicki and adding a pass blocking running back that can give them some pop up the middle as well, like Zach Moss, plus a guy like Trent Brown. I like the pieces they've added. It goes hand in hand. And I do think Joe Burrow will be protected with this group. Yeah,
we've talked quite a bit about Trent Brown's ability to play on an island. There's next gen stats that I know you posted in your article on allbengals.com. We talked about it in yesterday's shows, plural. I think both shows we talked about Trent Brown, his island rate leading the NFL the last couple of years. And he's just huge. It's hard to go around that guy. It's hard to go through that guy. You go throw on the Brandon Thorne highlights, and he has him going back several years, at least to 21, if not before. And there's just play after play of often good pass rushers in this league just wilting on contact with Trent Brown. And you see that with like J.C. Latham. Shout out Alabama Pro Day occurring as we're recording this episode. in the college ranks too. So you see this with some guys in college. You see this with some guys in the NFL, but the regularity with which Trent Brown just kills pass rushes in their tracks and just deadens momentum is something to behold. And the vertical displacement on guys when he gets into them in the run game, he's not going to be great getting to the second level or whatever in the run game, but he's a very, very, very powerful man when he gets his hands on you.
Mhm.
And so the hope is that elevates the Bengals' ability to protect Burrow in their drop back pass game, because that's where the weakness is. Like Ted Karras, solid pass protector year over year. You know exactly what you're getting with Ted. You have an idea of what you're getting with Orlando Brown. You have an idea of what you're getting with Trent Brown and when he's on the field. Alex Capo, need to see him return to form. Need to see Cordell Volson continue the level of play that he reached for like the last 7 weeks of the season, pretty much after Joe Burrow got hurt.
And he noticed that. I know for a fact. He noticed the difference. Whether things slowed down or he figured things out, he realized it. And Pollock acknowledged it at the combine. Like he started to play and stopped thinking, and he got lighter on his feet. And a guy that big certainly needs to be that way and play that way.
And it could just be learning curve stuff, right? Like Volson's first few games of the 2023 season were dreadful. Could also be they were in a system that was more offensive line friendly with Jake Browning at quarterback. And maybe that's the hard lesson that Joe Burrow and this offensive coaching staff need to learn. They need to do more of that. They need to protect their offensive line a little bit more. I mean, we know their moves indicate that they want to drop Joe Burrow back and be the Joe Burrow offense again. But maybe there's some draft acquisitions coming that could help with some of the things that they were doing last year with Jake Browning. Maybe they can just continue to do some of the things they're doing with Jake Browning at quarterback last year, because
I think they will to a degree. I think some of that will be mixed in.
Yeah, we've said that. Yeah. We've said that. For anyone who hasn't heard us say that, we were expecting some of that stuff to be part of their offense last year before Joe Burrow's calf injury really seemed to throw all of their plans into a blender. But their true pass set performance last year, even if you throw out the first few weeks of the season when Joe Burrow couldn't move, need to be better. For Orlando Brown, for Alex Cappa, for Cordell Volson, it needs to be better. And then even when you look just at the last 6 games of the season or so, it needs to be better. And so it's partly that you're hoping that Cordell Volson has found something that can make him an average pass protector and figure that out down the stretch. You're hoping that Orlando Brown was just dealing with an injury and he finished the season better than he started it to, that Alex Cappa can rediscover his form, and that Trent Brown can provide that stability. And then the answer is yes, and it'll be noticeable and not just an incremental yes, a marginal yes. We're like, it's better, but it's not better enough to notice or to matter.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be better enough to matter this year.
Yeah, and a couple of things. The nice part about dealing with veterans is I think they have the self-awareness. Like Orlando Brown Jr. has been in the facility all offseason. Cordell Volson knew exactly what he wanted to improve on going into the offseason, and I'm sure he's working really hard on doing that. And then a guy like Kappa, I think he's going to come back, and he'll be more consistent. And he'll be the guy we saw in 2022, where I thought he was their best offensive lineman and then took a step back last year. There were flashes of it. Like right before the bye, he was really good, like for a few weeks. And then it just kind of went back and regressed a bit. So that combined with Trent Brown needing to prove it, because I think if he goes out there and balls out, he's going to be able to earn a nice contract for someone. I don't know if it'll be the Bengals, but for someone. And so hopefully he can do that. And that's the nice part about getting a motivated veteran that sort of needs to reestablish his value a bit, that also should thrive in your system, is you might be able to get great value at that spot. And if they do, this Bengals offensive line should be pretty solid.
If they can fill out that depth we were talking about, because relying on your offensive line to get through the entire season, it's great when it happens, and it can get you on a run when it happens. And we've seen that for teams around the NFL, but it also can derail your run when injuries come at a bad time.
Cam Fleming or Mekhi Becton, 1 year, $3 million. Who are you picking?
I don't care. I truly don't care.
Just one of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just somebody
do
that's
care.
solid.
But yes.
I mean, it could be somebody else too. Just somebody who's better depth than what they have is all I'm saying there. You see this about the hip drop tackle just before we get out of here? The competition
No.
committee proposing a hip drop tackle rule. That is something that I am not a fan of. We're going to get out of here. The language of the rule is out there. That's emerged during this recording. And I have no trust in the officials on getting that one right. I don't know about you, but another subjective 15-yard penalty kind of rule that makes it harder to play defense. Don't like it.
I just have no idea how you're going to try to tackle me now. I really don't.
Sure. That is the biggest concern, of course, for our listeners.
I think I mentioned it in all 3 segments now. If you include
Yeah, you did it.
That's great.
Good work.
My man.
Fortunately for our listeners, there is not a 4th segment today. No more opportunities outside of the close when I'm sure you'll
Never
hear it
know.
one more time.
Maybe they'll sign Gilmore.
Yeah, maybe. And if they do, we might be back. But if they don't, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. And until next time, thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.